Hello, welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. This plant is Musa Basjoo, the hardy green banana. It's quite a common plant in exotic tropical jungle gardens. It's also known as the Japanese green banana. And despite the fact that it is the hardy green banana, it's not totally hardy, but we'll speak about that in a moment. Now, I'm just going to step nearer to the plant so that you can see just how tall it is. I'm 6 foot tall, and that's already getting above me. And there's plenty more to come because we're only at the end of June. It's had a slow start to the year, and we've still got at least 3 months growing left. So I'm hoping that that might even reach the top of that wall. Now, I've put together a 9-point plan here on how to maximise your Musa. For me, with Musa Basjoo banana plants, size matters. I want them to be tall, and I want the leaves to be huge. This leaf is already 5 foot long, and I think that's the impressive thing about these plants. And not only does it look impressive, it casts a lovely shade over the border. Right, so what do I do to maximise the height of my Musa Basjoo? Well, the first thing to talk about is the trunk, because the trunk is where the height comes from, but it's not a trunk. A tree trunk is made up of woody material, mainly carbon. These are pseudo trunks. That trunk is made up of leaves in concentric circles as they grow out from the centre. So basically it's green matter. It's not woody. In fact, this plant is a giant herb. The point I want to make is, in order to maintain and grow the height, you've got to protect the trunk from frost in the winter time. A tree will survive the winter with its carbon trunk, but that green trunk will go squidgy and squashy and rot down to nothing if it freezes, because all the cells full of water will rupture. We have to stop it from freezing. Now, I've already done 2 videos on winter protection for Musa Basjoo, and I'll link to them below and you can look at them in detail, but I'll just give you in a nutshell what I do. The first year these were in, I wrapped each individual trunk in insulation, cut the tops off and then wrapped them in weed fabric, and that gave them some insulation. The second year these were in, the second winter, because there was a collection and there were actually 10 there, I built a wooden frame around them, packed in insulation around each plant, and then wrapped that whole frame in weed fabric and put a weed fabric roof over it. So it kind of kept them dry, but it also kept them warm enough not to freeze. So point number 1, and it's really, really important in the UK, if you want to get height, you've got to protect the trunk. They are classed as hardy plants, but they are only root hardy. If the trunk freezes, it's not hardy. Now, if the trunk freezes and it dies down to the ground, that's not the end of the world, because it will grow back up again from the ground. But we're wanting height, so we're wanting it to start growing from where it left off. So protect the trunk for the winter. The second point I'm going to make is mulch. When I do my winter protection routine, I cover the roots in about 4 to 6 inches of well-rotted manure, and I'm very fortunate because my neighbour has polo ponies and I've got an abundant supply of well-rotted manure. So I'll go and get several barrel loads of manure and pile it up around the roots. And that does 3 things. Number 1, it provides a layer of insulation over those roots, which stops the cold from getting down into them. Number 2, it rots down and it feeds the roots. And the third point is, as we get into the spring, as temperatures start to rise and as the bacterial activity starts to produce that anaerobic and aerobic activity, it will produce some heat. So you're getting a head start at the rootstock by having a lot of manure there rotting. So mulch the roots in the winter, and that mulch will stay there all year and provide food for that plant all year. Now, my next 3 points are about position. The first point about position is these are quite susceptible to wind damage. So position it somewhere where it's sheltered from the prevailing wind. Now the leaves have evolved to adapt to strong wind because they tear and let the wind through, but for me that's a bit unsightly. So we want to protect it by putting it in a position that's out of the prevailing wind. The second point about position is light. It's not rocket science, this is plant logic. Plants need light to photosynthesize. These love light, they love sunlight. So put it in a south facing or west facing position. Here that's south over there and west is over there. So it benefits from the sun coming up, going over. So it's got sunlight all day. The third thing about position is try and put it somewhere where it will be warm. Now this position is fantastic because I've got these brick walls. It's sheltered and I've got brick walls which will absorb the sun's heat all day long. And then at night they will radiate that heat. So the average daytime temperature over 24 hours for these plants is slightly higher because it's got like a little microcosm of its own little world there, which is warm. So position, watch where the wind is, position, put them light, and position, make them somewhere where it's quite warm. The next point is again plant logic. Imagine the energy and the food that is required to produce all that green matter. A lot, in a nutshell. So again, don't just rely on the mulch, feed them. These get fed with a top dressing of pelleted chicken manure, and also they get fed weekly with liquid seaweed food. The more food you give them, and the more heat and light and water they get, the bigger and faster they will grow. Which brings me to my next point, which is water. All that leaf surface, all day long in the summer, is sucking up and transpiring water from the roots. So again, in the summertime, they get watered and drenched daily. They need lots of water. Now, I've already mentioned the wind, but there is an important point here with the wind, which is not just about the position. Inevitably, sometimes you might well get one of these new leaves which come out from the centre of that concentric circle of leaves in the trunk. Inevitably, you might just get one of them kinking or bending over. If that happens, what I do is I cut them, because you've got to allow the new leaf that's inside there to emerge. If it's bent over and kinked, it can't go anywhere. So in the eventuality that you do have a bent or kinked or broken leaf early on in the year, cut it off to allow the next one through. Now eventually the average winds will drop down. Hopefully you've put yours in a shelter position and the leaves will get bigger and stronger, and that won't happen. But if it does happen, cut them off to allow the new leaf to come through. So that's it in a nutshell. Quite concise really, and actually pretty much logical common sense that most people know. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And I've got a question for you. I've heard that if Musa Basjoo produces a flower, which it does occasionally apparently, it means the plant is about to die. Have you heard that? Have you any experience of that? And what can I do to stop it producing a flower? Because I don't want it to die. Now, if it does die, it's not the end of the world because new ones will sprout up from the base, but I want height. That's the whole point. What's your experience of flowering green bananas? Let me know in the comments box below this, and I'll see you soon for some more Musa Basjoo adventures. Bye for now.